Strangers. When we were kids, summer meant freedom. No homework, no teachers, no school. And as adults, summer still means freedom thanks to Mint Mobile's summer sale. Right now, all of Mint's plans are $15 per month, even unlimited. We can give our kid freedom with Mint's high-speed data and coverage on the T-Mobile 5G network so they can be free to roam and keep in contact with us. Because while we may have all roamed around in wild packs with no supervision, that's not the world today. I need to be able to call my kid and remind them I love them and tell them to get their butt home for dinner, and yes, they can have that last-minute sleepover. Mint Mobile took what's wrong with wireless and made it right with premium wireless for $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your current phone and your number. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/strange. That's mintmobile.com/strange. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/strange. That's it. There's no catch. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months. Plan required, $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Includes up to 20 gigabytes hotspot. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com. Hey, strangers, it's me, Daisy. You know I love a case that refuses to be explained, and I found one that I had to share with you. I recently joined Carter Roy on his podcast, Murder, True Crime Stories, to dig into the Galapagos affair, a string of disappearances and deaths on a remote island in the 1930s. A self-proclaimed baroness, a doctor who pulled all of his own teeth out, 3 deaths, 2 vanishings, and not one charge ever filed. Almost 100 years later, it's still unsolved. I'm dropping part 1 of the episode right here in the feed. For part 2, and to hear my extended conversation with Carter about this case, follow Murder, True Crime Stories on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen.
This is Crime House.
Every so often, somebody decides the world is too much, too loud, too cruel, too crowded, and they go looking for a place to disappear. Most of us take a long weekend, but in 1929, a German doctor and the woman he loved went looking for a place where the rest of the human race could never reach them. They found it on a speck of volcanic rock in the Pacific, an island called Floreana in the Galapagos. Now, the Galapagos have a nickname that goes back centuries. Sailors called them Las Encantadas, the Enchanted Islands, not because they were charming, but because they seemed to move. Ships would sail straight for them and watch them vanish into the mist, like the islands didn't want to be found. And yet, people kept finding them. In fact, a place that seemed to swallow ships whole turned out to be exactly what a certain kind of person was looking for, somewhere the rest of the world couldn't follow. But there's a pattern to Floreana that's hard to ignore. People kept coming here to start over, and one by one, the island found ways to make sure they never left. That German doctor and the woman he loved were only the beginning. Others read about their escape and came chasing the same dream, until a handful of strangers were all sharing one tiny island. And it didn't take long for paradise to turn on them. By 1934, the little colony on Floreana was falling apart. People were vanishing. Bodies were turning up in the strangest places or not turning up at all. And almost 100 years later, nobody can tell you for sure what happened.
People's lives are like a story. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. But you don't always know which part you're on. Sometimes the final chapter arrives far too soon, and we don't always get to know the real ending. I'm Carter Roy, and this is Murder, True Crime Stories, the Crime House original powered by Pave Studios. New episodes come out every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, with Friday's episodes covering the cases that deserve a deeper look. Thank you for being part of the Crime House community. Please rate, review, and follow the show. And for early ad-free access to every episode, subscribe to Crime House Plus. You'll get part 1 and part 2 at the same time, plus exclusive bonus content. To join, go to crimehouseplus.com or tap Try Free on the Murder True Crime Stories show page on Apple Podcasts. And I have some exciting news. For the next 2 episodes, I'll be joined by a very special guest, Daisy Egan, host of Strange and Unexplained.
Thanks for having me, Carter. I'm really excited to be here. I don't know anything about this story, and I can't wait to hear all about it.
It is incredible. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it. Now, that's exactly what I wanted to hear, in fact, for these episodes. For everyone listening, if you're not already following Strange and Unexplained, go do that right now. Every week, Daisy digs into the stories that sit just past the edge of what we can explain. Hauntings, vanishings, the cases that don't add up. She brings real curiosity and a healthy dose of skepticism to these stories, which is exactly the right way to come at this one.
Yeah, like I told you before when we were chatting, I came into this knowing pretty much nothing at all. I'm sure it ends the same way most cults do, but I cannot wait to hear the ins and outs.
Oh my, it is astonishing. This case has receipts and unfortunately almost no answers. So here's how this is going to work. Daisy's going to introduce these next 2 episodes. I'll take you through the story, and then she's coming back at the end of part 2 for a longer conversation once you've heard the whole thing. You are not going to want to miss that.
Now, let's get into it. This is the first of 2 episodes on the Galapagos affair, a chain of disappearances and deaths among a tiny group of European settlers who moved to a remote island in the Pacific in the early 1930s. They came looking for paradise. What they found was something else entirely. Today, Carter's going to introduce you to these settlers, starting with the idealistic doctor and his partner who started it all. He'll walk you through what happened when more people followed them to the island and how a place that was supposed to be an escape from human nature ended up bringing out the worst of it. Next time, Carter gets into the heart of the story, what actually happened to these people and the wildly different accounts the survivors gave once it was all over. Each one had a version that made them look innocent, and someone else look guilty. None of them ever lined up, and almost 100 years later, this case is still unsolved. All that and more, coming up. Strangers, carbs are back. I don't know if you've gotten the memo, but gone are the days where we don't eat carbs. Turns out, your body needs carbs. Weird, right? But listen, more and more now we're learning most bread companies are owned by unsavory companies. And that's why I'm in love with Wild Grain. Wild Grain delivers delicious, high-quality bread, pastries, and pastas right to my door from small, independent bakeries. All without gross fillers, corn syrups, or low-quality ingredients that cause digestion issues. Everything from Wild Grain bakes straight from frozen in 25 minutes or less, so you can enjoy freshly baked favorites whenever you want them. Unlike many grocery store options, Wild Grain uses simple, recognizable ingredients and a slow fermentation process, which is often easier to digest. Right now, I'm really into Wild Grain's slow-fermented artisanal pita. They make the perfect base for my lunch and are absolutely delicious. Plus, the crusty, flaky croissants with Wild Grain's French butter and a little jam are absolutely the best way to start the day. Wild Grain has more than 40,000 five-star reviews. It was named USA Today's Best Food Subscription Box 3 years in a row. Plus, they have award-winning croissants. Visit wildgrain.com/strange to get $30 off your first box, plus free croissants for life. Again, that's wildgrain.com/strange for $30 off your first box and free croissants for life, or use promo code STRANGE at checkout.
Before anyone in our story ever set foot on Floreana, the island already had a reputation, and it wasn't a good one. The Galapagos are a chain of islands off the coast of Ecuador, sitting right on the equator. They're famous now for two things. One is Charles Darwin, who studied the wildlife there in the 1830s and used what he saw to develop his theory of natural selection. The other is the animals themselves. The marine iguanas, the blue-footed boobies, and the giant tortoises, the biggest in the world that sometimes live past 100. The animals thrived because no one bothered them. And that's because for most of human history, almost nobody wanted to live there. The islands are beautiful with a warm, tropical climate. They're also volcanic, dry, and short on fresh water. To early sailors, they didn't feel like paradise at all. In fact, the sailors had a name for them, Las Encantadas, the Enchanted Islands. The currents and the thick sea mist here were so treacherous that ships could lose sight of land for hours, as if the place kept slipping out from under them. To an exhausted crew running low on water, the Galapagos didn't feel enchanting. They felt bewitched. And the few who did try to live there, it usually didn't end well for them. The first known resident of Floreana was an Irish sailor named Patrick Watkins, who got marooned on the island around 1807. He survived for 2 years, growing vegetables and trading them to passing whalers, mostly for rum. By the time another ship's captain wrote about him, Watkins had basically gone feral. He was wild-haired, sunburned, half-naked, and, according to the captain, terrifying to look at. When Watkins finally left, he talked 5 sailors into boarding a stolen boat with him and rowing for the mainland. The boat reached Ecuador, but only Watkins was still on it. The other 5 men had simply vanished somewhere out on the open water. No one ever learned what happened to them. Now, I'll be honest with you, this is exactly the kind of detail that makes a place like Floreana feel cursed. But there's nothing supernatural about a barren island being hard to survive on. People ran out of water. People turned on each other. That's not a ghost story. That's just what isolation does to human beings. But it does set the stage. And long before our settlers arrived, Floreana was already a place where people came to escape the world and then quietly disappeared from it. Things started to change around 1920. Ecuador wanted to strengthen its claim to the Galapagos, and the government needed money, so it made an offer to Europeans. Come settle the islands, and we'll give you free land and tax exemptions. The people who took that deal were not your average families. They tended to be political outcasts, members of religious fringe groups, and dreamers chasing a simpler life. Most of them headed for the 2 largest islands, San Cristobal and Santa Cruz, where supply ships came through every few months and small farming communities could just about survive. But not everyone wanted to build a community. One couple wanted the opposite. They didn't want neighbors or supply ships or a village. They wanted to cut themselves off completely from what they saw as the evils of human society. Their names were Dr. Friedrich Ritter and Dora Strauch. Of the 2 of them, Friedrich was the clear leader. He was born in Germany in 1886, and from a young age, he felt like an outsider. He was smaller than the other boys and got sick more often, which left him feeling weak and insecure. School made it worse. The teachers in his town were harsh, and for whatever reason, Friedrich was a favorite target. He later said that one day, when he was 8 years old, a teacher hit him so hard it scarred him for life. Somehow he pushed through all of it. He finished school and started studying medicine. He came out of his shell, and in 1906, at 20 years old, while he was still in school, he married a singer named Mila. With his help, Mila's career took off, and for a while, they were happy. Then, in 1914, World War I broke out. Friedrich, who was 28, volunteered for the front lines. The war changed him forever. He never said much about what he saw in the trenches. Whatever it was worse than anything his rough childhood had prepared him for. He came home convinced that human nature was fundamentally broken. That whenever different groups of people tried to live side by side, violence was inevitable. To him, society itself was the disease. But for a while after the war, he tried to go back to normal. He became a doctor like he'd planned, and that's when things started to come apart. His wife, Mila, wanted to stop singing. She wanted to settle down, have children, and run a household. To most people in the 1920s, that would have sounded completely ordinary. To Friedrich, it was a betrayal. He believed traditional family life corrupted the soul, and he refused to allow it. He also still wanted her income from singing, so he pushed her to keep performing and give up the idea of kids. Mila gave in, but the marriage was hollow now. There was never any room to compromise with Friedrich. He took the hardest possible line on everything. He believed, among other things, that people could cure their own illnesses through sheer willpower. It's a strange belief for a doctor, but Friedrich dressed it up in the psychological language of the day. He didn't reject medicine outright. He preached something he called the power of thought, the idea that the mind could overcome the body. And that message landed hard with one of his patients, a woman in her mid-20s named Dora Strauch. Dora had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a disease that can cause muscle weakness, fatigue, and problems with coordination. She was also unhappily married to a man twice her age, and she dreaded the idea of spending her life as a housewife. When she told Friedrich all this, he didn't brush her off. He listened. He told her she didn't have to accept the life she'd been handed. Not her marriage, and not even her illness. And he understood her restlessness, because he felt it too. The two of them started spending long afternoons together on the roof of his medical practice, looking up at the sky and talking about running away from the city to live somewhere wild and free. It didn't take long for the relationship to turn romantic. When Dora's husband found out and tried to put a stop to it, she flatly refused to end the affair. Eventually, he gave up trying. And by then, Dora only had eyes for her doctor. And only had eyes for, might be underselling it. By every account, Dora was completely devoted to Friedrich. To her, he was a genius and a philosopher and her soulmate, all in one. She put him on a pedestal so high, it's hard to imagine anyone living up to it. For his part, Friedrich saw Dora as his one true student, the only person who really understood him, the one person who gave him the validation he craved. They needed each other in a way that wasn't entirely healthy, but it was real, and soon they started talking about leaving. Not just the marriages they were both unhappy in, but everything. The city, Germany, civilization itself, to go live alone on some remote patch of wilderness and start over with nothing but each other and Friedrich's ideas. It was a beautiful dream, but the reality was a lot more complicated.
Strangers. There are some things they don't tell you about menopause and perimenopause, like itchy feet and hands and ears, smell sensitivity, and the rapid signs of aging. You know why women's skin ages faster than men's? It's because of the hormones, especially the loss of estrogen. So you need skincare that addresses your skin at your age with your hormones. That answer is M4 Skincare from Alloy, the first head-to-toe line of estriol-powered skincare. Estriol is a safe, gentle, and bioidentical form of estrogen clinically proven to rebuild collagen, restore elasticity, and visibly reduce wrinkles. 88% of users using M4 face cream saw improved elasticity. The full line targets face, eyes, and body. It's prescription strength without the appointments, pharmacy trips, or insurance hassle. It's HSA and FSA eligible and delivered free to your door. I love my Alloy eye cream. It's silky and light and definitely does the trick on those fine lines I've noticed creeping in the past couple of years. I see you, lines. And so does Alloy. Try M4 Skincare from Alloy and see results in as little as 8 weeks. Head to myalloy.com and use the code STRANGE to get $20 off your first order. Your menopause specialized doctor will tailor your skincare to your needs. Plus, you get $0 unlimited messaging with your doctor. Head to myalloy.com and use code STRANGE to get $20 off your first order.
By the late 1920s, Dr. Friedrich Ritter and Doris Strauch had spent 2 years in Berlin imagining the same impossible future, leaving behind their marriages, their country, and the modern world itself to start over alone somewhere wild. Plenty of people would have left it at that, a fantasy they talked about and never acted on. Friedrich and Dora were not those people. By 1929, they'd even picked the spot, Floreana Island, an uninhabited stretch of the Galapagos about 30 miles from the nearest settlement. The only thing left to figure out was their spouses. Neither of them actually disliked the people they were married to, they just felt trapped. So they came up with a solution that's honestly hard to believe. They'd swap. Friedrich's wife Mila could go live the traditional settled life she wanted with Dora's husband. Getting Dora's husband to agree turned out to be the easy part. Mila was the holdout. At first, she wanted nothing to do with moving in with an older man she'd never even met. But the only other option was clinging to a marriage to a man who didn't want her. In the end, she gave in. Back home, the whole arrangement was a scandal. Friedrich didn't care. He was leaving it all behind. There's one more detail from those final weeks that tells you everything about him. Before they left, Friedrich pulled out all of his teeth on purpose. He figured there'd be no dentist on Floreana, so rather than risk a toothache 1,000 miles from help, he had a set of stainless steel dentures made instead. When Dora's own teeth started to go bad on the island later, the two of them ended up sharing that single metal set. It's a grim image, but it's the perfect snapshot of Friedrich Ritter, a man so certain he could outthink nature that he'd reach for a pair of pliers to prove it. On July 4th, 1929, Friedrich and Dora boarded a boat bound for Ecuador. They arrived that August, only to learn the next ship to the Galapagos wouldn't leave for another month. They'd sold off everything they owned to pay for the trip, so they spent those weeks barely scraping by, stretching the last of their money. Finally, on September 19th, 1929, they set foot on Floreana. From the water, it wasn't much to look at. A thorny beach, a small patch of forest, a few herds of wild cattle wandering amongst the giant tortoises. But to Friedrich and Dora, it was heaven. They found a spot downstream from one of the island's few freshwater springs, and they built a home. They named it Friedo, a blend of their two names, with Friedrich's, of course, going first. After years of dreaming, they'd finally done it. They had the solitude they'd been chasing. Dora later wrote that their first night on the island was the happiest of her life. It wouldn't stay that way for long. Living off the land turned out to be a lot harder than they'd imagined. They were alone, with no doctor but Friedrich, no supplies but what they'd carried, and nothing but their own two hands. Friedrich wanted to get to work immediately, and Dora was happy to follow his lead. They found their water source, built a rough hut, and turned to the hardest problem of all, food. Both of them were strict vegetarians by principle, and that ruled out the wild cattle and the fish, so they lived on guava, pigeon peas, and whatever else they could grow or forage, plus a stash of seeds they'd brought from Germany to start a small farm. A lot of people would have quit. Plenty of settlers before them had. But Friedrich and Dora were true believers, convinced that grit alone could carry them through. And slowly, it sort of did. After 18 months of relentless work, they had something close to a real home. They washed their clothes, and they cooked over an open fire with homemade tools. A cargo ship came by every 6 to 8 months to collect their mail and trade for basic goods. Now and then, colonists from other islands would stop by. But here's the thing nobody back in Germany knew. Dora was miserable. No matter how much they built, Friedrich's mind was always on the next task. He rarely talked except to give orders or lecture her on his philosophy. She still worshipped him, but after a year and a half with no other company, she was starving for an actual conversation. And there was a deeper problem. Friedrich was her teacher and her partner, but he was a cold one. He didn't show much warmth, and allegedly he even beat her. And mostly, he complained about her health. Remember, Dora had multiple sclerosis. Some days her symptoms made it impossible to do the heavy labor the island demanded. That frustrated Friedrich to no end. He promised her she could beat the disease with her mind and pushed her to work even on days she could barely stand. So Dora blamed herself. She decided her body was failing because she wasn't strong enough, and Friedrich's coldness drove the point home. And you can imagine how lonely that was, which is why on January 3rd, 1932, she was overjoyed when a ship full of visitors anchored off the island. It turned out Friedrich and Dora were famous, and they had no idea. Back in Germany, one of their relatives had leaked their letters home to the newspapers. For a couple of years now, sensational stories had been spreading about the doctor and his mistress living naked in the wilderness, building some kind of unholy little Eden far from civilization. And naturally, people were curious. This particular group was a scientific expedition, and they expected to find a pair of wild eccentrics. Instead, they met two well-spoken intellectuals, and they spent a perfectly pleasant afternoon together. For Dora, it was a lifeline. For Friedrich, it was an intrusion. He was especially upset to learn he was a laughingstock back home. Still, the visitors won him over a little. They left the couple some gifts, a stove, oil for a lamp, and soap, and Friedrich waved them off warmly enough. Then he told Dora he hoped those would be the last guests for a while. But he didn't get his wish, and in a way, it was his own fault.
Strangers, I have been going through it lately. Listen, not to depress you, but my kid is now the age I was when my mom died, so my shoulders are at my ears, and I'm checking twice under the bed for monsters. I would not get through this time with my sanity intact if it wasn't for therapy. I may be stressed, but I'm no dummy. Listen, I know how hard it is to find good mental health care these days. Finding a therapist is hard enough, but finding one who actually takes your insurance? That's where most online therapy platforms fall short. Many don't work with insurance at all, which means you're stuck paying the full cost out of pocket or paying for an expensive monthly subscription. Rula does things differently. They partner with over 100 insurance plans, making the average copay just $15 per session. That's real therapy from licensed professionals at a price that actually makes sense. Think about it. You use your insurance benefits to maintain your physical health, so why wouldn't you do the same for your mental health? Therapy is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Even if you're not handling an existential crisis like me and just need help navigating your work relationships or the anxiety you feel having to navigate the grocery store, Rula is for everyone. Thousands of people are already using Rula to get affordable, high-quality therapy that's actually covered by insurance. Visit Rula.com/strange to get started. That's RULA.com/strange. You deserve mental health care that works with you, not against your budget.
After that first visit, Friedrich stewed. He'd given up the world, but it aided him that the world was gossiping about him. So he started writing articles about his life on the island, partly to set the record straight, partly to spread his philosophy. The mail ship carried them off, and they ran in German newspapers months later. Unsurprisingly, that only fed the fire. The articles pulled in more attention, not less. Over the next couple of years, a steady stream of wealthy travelers and scientific parties rerouted their voyages just to gawk at the famous hermits. One regular was an American millionaire named Alan Hancock, who came down on his own research yacht more than once. And that was only the beginning. By the summer of 1932, Friedrich and Dora had been on the island for nearly 3 years. Their garden was thriving. The weather was good. It should have been another perfect day in paradise. But on August 28th of that year, Friedrich looked out at the ocean and saw the thing he dreaded most. A small boat crossing the horizon, dropping anchor right off his beach. There wasn't supposed to be a ship for months, so Friedrich and Dora knew right away something was off. They hurried down to the shore and watched a family climb out of a dinghy. They were Heinz and Margaret Wittmer, and Heinz's 12-year-old son from an earlier marriage, a boy named Harry. Friedrich took one look and scowled. His newspaper articles had done their job a little too well. Heinz Wittmer had read Friedrich's writing and been inspired by it. Harry's health had been failing back in Germany, and Heinz couldn't afford a long hospital stay. He decided what the boy really needed was a change of climate. Fresh air and hard work. Exactly like the famous Dr. Ritter prescribed. Of course, you can't call ahead to an island with no phones, so the Wittmers did what Friedrich and Dora had done. They sold everything and took a leap of faith. The Wittmers clearly expected a warm welcome. They didn't get one. Friedrich was especially rattled to learn that Margaret was pregnant. They'd assumed that having a doctor on the island was a stroke of luck. Surely he'd help deliver the baby and share what he knew. It was the opposite. Friedrich and Dora were deeply unimpressed with their new neighbors. Heinz and Margaret weren't intellectuals. Margaret in particular was exactly the kind of down-to-earth, traditional wife and mother that Friedrich had spent his whole life railing against. And the family had no grand philosophy. They'd mostly come on a hope and a prayer. But it was too late for second thoughts. The next ship was months away, and the Wittmers had no money for a trip home anyway. They were staying. Friedrich decided to draw a line early on. Rather than let the Wittmers settle near Friedo, he marched them inland to an old cave near another freshwater spring. A century earlier, that same cave had sheltered pirates. The area is known today as Asilo de la Paz, which translates, a little too optimistically, to Haven of Peace. It wasn't a terrible spot, aside from a long walk to the beach, and the Wittmers got the message fast. This was not the dream the newspapers had sold them, and their only neighbors couldn't stand them. So they did the only thing they could. They dug in, scratching out a life with almost no help from Friedrich and Dora. And here's the thing, they were good at it. Really good. Where Friedrich preached survival, the Wittmers actually survived. They were practical, tireless, and they learned fast. Over the next few weeks, the chill between the two households thawed just a little. Friedrich still kept his distance, and he still flatly refused to be Margaret's doctor, but the two families reached a kind of truce. There was even a moment where it seemed like they might all coexist. Then, on October 15th, 1932, another boat that shouldn't have been there drifted toward the beach. And when 3 new arrivals stepped onto the sand, nobody could hide their dismay.
Strangers, if you like sleeping as much as I do, you'll love Miracle Made sheets. Made with silver-infused fabric with technology inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are truly space-age, giving you comfort that is out of this world. See what I did there? Miracle Made sheets keep me cool when it's hot and also cool when it's cold. I sleep hot. Meanwhile, my husband's next to me, sleeping in a full synthetic fabric pajama set like nothing is happening. Plus, Miracle Made sheets are so soft and luxurious and don't come with a high price tag of other luxury sheets. Not only will you spend less on sheets, you'll spend less on cleaning them because that silver-infused fabric prevents almost 100% of bacteria growth, meaning less laundry. Also, you're not laying around in germs, which is a huge plus. And Miracle Made isn't just sheets. Get yourself all your silver-infused bedding and sleep better. Upgrade your sleep or give the gift of better rest. Go to trymiracle.com/strange to try Miracle Made sheets today. You'll save over 40%, and when you use promo code STRANGE, you'll get an extra 20% off, plus a free 3-piece towel set. They make an amazing gift, and with a 30-day money-back guarantee, there's no risk. That's trymiracle.com/strange, code STRANGE at checkout. Thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode.
On October 15th, 1932, 3 new settlers landed on Floreana, bringing the island's population to 8. 3 years earlier, Friedrich Ritter and Doris Strauch had come here to get away from human society. Now there was a whole little neighborhood, whether they liked it or not. And the woman in charge of this latest group was something else entirely. Her full name was Eloise Verborn Wagner-Buske, but she called herself the Baroness. She was 39 years old, and she'd arrived with 2 much younger men, both in their 20s, Robert Philipson and Rudolf Lorenz. And almost right away, she'd gotten on everyone's nerves. Without asking anyone, she set up camp right across the stream from the Wittmers' cave. She announced that she intended to build a luxury hotel on the island, a resort for wealthy American friends, which she planned to call Hacienda Paradiso, Paradise Ranch. I want to be careful with the Baroness because she's the easiest person in this story to turn into a cartoon. The truth is, we know surprisingly little about who she really was before Floreana, and a lot of what she said about herself turned out to be invented. So it's hard to know where the real woman ended and the character began. But what the other settlers saw was a woman who treated her 2 young companions like servants and told stories so wild that people assumed she was joking. She wasn't. She informed the others more or less on arrival that the entire island of Floreana now belonged to her. Friedrich was appalled. Coming to the Galapagos to build a resort and make money was the exact opposite of everything he believed. And from the moment the Baroness landed, he was convinced she was going to wreck his whole experiment. He turned out to be right. He just had no idea how. Exactly a month after the Baroness arrived, 2 settlers from a larger island stopped by Floreana to hunt. People did this from time to time. The wild cattle were free for the taking, and nobody minded, least of all Friedrich and Dora, who didn't eat meat anyway. But when the Baroness heard a gunshot, she came charging out to confront the hunters with Robert at her side. Both of them were armed. She had a revolver, he had a rifle. She screamed at the bewildered men that the whole island was hers and that they'd just killed one of her animals. Then she allegedly ordered Robert to beat them. He managed to rip the shirt off one of them before the 2 hunters bolted into the woods and ran straight for Frido. When the hunters told Friedrich what had happened, he was furious. But Friedrich was no fighter, so instead of confronting the Baroness, he wrote a strongly worded letter about her and asked the hunters to deliver it to the governor of the Galapagos. And then he sat there and hated himself for it. Well, the entire point of Floreana was to live beyond society and its rules. Now here he was, appealing to a government official to settle a dispute because one woman had turned his paradise into something else entirely. His grand mission was unraveling, and it had taken just a handful of neighbors to do it. And the worst part was that the letter didn't change anything. The Baroness carried on exactly as before, and the family that lived closest to her, the Wittmers, was about to go through something far more frightening than a property dispute. The baby was due at the end of the year, and Margaret would be giving birth in a cave with no real medical supplies beyond bandages and soap. The family hadn't spoken to Friedrich about the pregnancy since the day they'd met, but when Margaret went into labor on December 30th, 1932, her husband Heinz insisted on calling the doctor. Margaret refused. For 2 full days, she labored in the back of the cave trying to deliver the baby herself. By New Year's, she was in serious trouble. At one point, while Heinz was out hunting, the pain got to be too much. Margaret staggered out of the cave to scream for him and fainted in the woods. When she came to a few minutes later, she could hear a baby crying in the grass beside her. It was a boy. Heinz raced back, cut the umbilical cord, scooped up the baby, and got his wife back to bed. The newborn was somehow perfectly healthy. Margaret was not. After a couple more hours of agony, she finally begged Heinz to go get Friedrich. The run to Frido took Heinz nearly an hour, then another hour to convince Friedrich to come and gather his supplies. By the time the 2 men reached Margaret, 3 hours had passed since she'd asked for help. She was barely hanging on. It's not entirely clear what was wrong, but Friedrich decided he had to operate immediately. And for once, the Wittmers saw a different side of him. The cranky philosopher was gone. He was a careful, competent doctor. And that didn't make it any easier. He had no anesthetic. He had to operate on Margaret while she was fully awake. The pain was unimaginable, but Margaret refused to give Friedrich the satisfaction of hearing her cry out. Well, maybe it was pride, maybe it was spite, maybe both. Either way, she got through the whole thing without making a sound. When it was over, the 2 families had a new respect for each other. Friedrich had saved Margaret's life, and he wouldn't take a cent for it. He said he was simply impressed by how brave she'd been. The Wittmers named the baby Rolf. He was born on January 1st, 1933, and was the first child born on Floreana, and is often described as the first documented birth in the Galapagos. For a little while, that baby actually softened things on Floreana. Even the Baroness came by with some clothes for him, Andorra was thrilled that the island finally had a native-born citizen. Those good feelings lasted about a month. On January 26, 1933, a scientific expedition came by on its annual visit. A year earlier, there had only been 2 settlers to meet. Now the visitors were stunned to find 8 people on the island, and even more stunned to learn that none of them got along. The scientists, against Friedrich's wishes, invited all 8 residents aboard their ship. Almost immediately, the Baroness and Dora got into it. The argument got so heated that the crew had to physically pull the 2 women apart. And that was just the warm-up. Right before the ship left, a second fight broke out. The visitors had brought gifts that were originally meant for Friedrich and Dora, since they hadn't even known the other settlers existed. But the Baroness demanded the goods be split evenly. Friedrich refused. In the end, he and Dora kept everything for themselves. It was a petty move, and it broke his own rules. In his writing, Friedrich condemned greed and the hunger for possessions. But the second arrival wanted to share. He took it all just to spite her. With attitudes like that on a tiny island, the tension wasn't going anywhere. As 1933 wore on, the feuds just kept getting worse. The Baroness stayed public enemy number 1, grating on Friedrich and Dora, and especially the Wittmers next door. Now, here's one example of why. The Wittmers once bought a bag of rice from the supply ship, using a tiny bit of the cash they had left. A nest egg that was nearly gone. On the day the ship came in, the Baroness offered to go down to the beach and pick up their goods for them. The Wittmers said yes, figuring it was just a neighborly favor. But Margaret said that when they went to collect their rice, the Baroness tried to charge them a storage fee for holding it at her place. When they refused to pay, she simply kept the rice. For the Wittmers, that was the last straw. They had almost no money, and losing that rice meant losing food they badly needed. The Baroness never even apologized. She just carried on like nothing had happened. And then things got even worse. The weather turned on all of them. The rainy season was supposed to come at the end of 1933. It didn't. Month after month went by with no rain, and Floreana's fresh water started to run dry. By the spring of 1934, the conflict was reaching a boiling point. In March, the crops began to wither. The Baroness and her 2 men were hit hardest of anyone because they had the worst land. From their cave, the Wittmers could hear the 3 of them screaming at each other through the night. And in the mornings, they noticed Rudolph walking around with a black eye and bruises. Things at the Baroness's camp were clearly going very wrong. Finally, Heinz walked down to Friedo to talk to Friedrich and Dora. He argued that the settlers should band together and do something about the Baroness. He said she was out of control and somebody had to rein her in. Friedrich and Dora shook their heads. And this was exactly the kind of mess they'd come to Floreana to avoid. They wanted no part of it. Heinz left in a huff, but Heinz was right. Things had gone too far to ignore. Within weeks, people on that island would start to vanish. One settler would walk off and never be seen again. Another would turn up dead in a place that made no sense, and the survivors would spend the rest of their lives telling stories that never quite fit together. Friedrich Ritter had come to Floreana certain that human beings, packed together, would always turn to violence. He'd built his whole life around escaping that fate. In the end, on his own remote little island, with only 7 other people for company, he was about to be proven right. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Carter Roy, and this is Murder, True Crime Stories. Come back next time for part 2 on the Galapagos affair and all the people it affected. And Daisy Egan from Strange and Unexplained will be right here with me to help untangle it. Murder, True Crime Stories is a Crime House original powered by Pave Studios here at Crime House. We want to thank each and every one of you for your support. If you like what you heard today, reach out on social media at Crime House on TikTok and Instagram. Don't forget to rate, review, and follow Murder True Crime Stories wherever you get your podcasts. Your feedback truly makes a difference. And to enhance your Murder True Crime Stories listening experience, subscribe to Crime House Plus on Apple Podcasts. You'll get both parts of every story dropped on Tuesday, completely ad-free, no waiting for part 2, plus ad-free and early access to every show across Crime House and bonus episodes every month. To join, go to crimehouseplus.com, or if you listen on Apple Podcasts, tap Try Free at the top of the Murder True Crime Stories page. We'll be back on Thursday. Murder True Crime Stories is hosted by me, Carter Roy, and is a Crime House original powered by Pave Studios. This episode was brought to life by the Murder True Crime Stories team: Max Cutler, Ron Shapiro, Alex Benedon, Natalie Pertovsky, Lori Marinelli, Alyssa Fox, Roman D'Angelo, and Russell Nash. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. That was part 1 of the Galapagos affair on Murder, True Crime Stories with Carter Roy. To hear the rest of the story and to hear my extended conversation with Carter, follow Murder, True Crime Stories on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts.